call the first speaker of the proposition, Arush, to present his case.
Good evening. The motion before us is this House would permit the use of performance-enhancing drugs in professional sports. Before I begin with defining the topic clearly, I should like all of you to note the instant aversion that our subconscious mind have towards words like drugs and performance-enhancing. Because suddenly in the subconscious, images of Lance Armstrong or the athletes alike that are involved in such cases come up. And we have suddenly an aversion towards drugs or performance enhancement, the words as soon as we mention it. I would like you to all have an open mind because this is not what we are implying. I would like to define the keywords that are mentioned in the topic. The keywords in the topic are would, permit, performance enhancing or enhancement, drugs, and professional sports. Would means expressing a desire or inclination, so we are not saying that all the drugs out there should be used by anyone and everyone who gets their hands on it. Performance is the action or process of performing a task or a function. Enhancement, intensify or increase or further improve the quality slightly. Note the word slightly. It will not turn a turtle into a rabbit. It is not a magic potion. Drugs is basically a biochemical substance which has a physiological effect when ingested or otherwise introduced into the body. And professional sports, as you all know, is not amateur sports. It's basically sports in which athletes receive payments for their performance. I, as the first speaker, will lay out the principal model that we are proposing for the use of such substances and talk about the history of usage of drugs in sports. My second speaker, Rahul, will speak about how drugs will level the play field and not create an inequality which we all think it will. And lastly, my third speaker will rebut all the points that our worthy opponents might try to come up with in the course of the debate by mentioning examples of Lance Armstrong or alike. Principally, the model that we are proposing is keeping in line with the word would. It will slightly improve the efficiency and endurance of the sports person for that particular sport. Drugs like stimulants, painkillers, diuretics, and blood boosters. Already painkillers are used by athletes range from common over-the-counter medicines such as NSAIDs. Stimulants we are not saying everyone should be able to use all the drugs out there and then just compete based on that. Many people think that doping has only been an issue for the past 30 or 40 years. There is evidence of athletes using the substance to enhance their performance since the early Olympic Games in approximately 700 BC.
Point of information.
Go ahead.
You said that the definition is by would, but by permitting, we are still allowing dangerous substances to be used.
I never said the definition is would. I didn't define the word dope, and permit is yes, we are allowing the drugs, but we are regulating the drugs and we are not allowing all the drugs to be used by all the sports person in whichever way they want. And now, enhancing performance in competitions of sports has been going on for the past several years. It is believed that early Olympians consumed herbal mushroom concoctions or would eat Molenar-3, which is basically sheep testicles to increase the testosterone levels for competition. Today, many athletes take specially tailored vitamins and supplements to improve their performance in training and in competition. This is perfectly legal, by the way, right now, as long as these substances do not end up in banned substance. Athletes are regularly tested not only during the competition, but also during random training. Currently, the probability of detecting doping is, mind you, just 2.9%. Only 2.9%. Go ahead.
Supplements aren't drugs, so how do you draw the correlation between supplements and drugs?
Supplements are in fact drugs because any medicine that you take are drugs and supplements include medicines. So you should know what you're talking about. It is therefore inevitable that in near future some drugs will have to be legalized, not only because of the failure of the fact that they cannot be detected, but also because as the society progresses, different drugs have been legalized in the past and will be legalized in the future. That is the evolution of sports in this aspect, and no one can deny it. The opposition can be myopic and live in a neverland of their own, but that does not change the reality. Lance Armstrong, the face of doping to many, is an example of the flawed logic behind bans. Armstrong had an advantage because of his illegal activities. but it is really an unfair advantage if the majority of your competitors are also using performance enhancement drugs. According to Business Insider, 20 out of the 21 top 3 Tour de France finishers from 1999 to 2005 were taking PEDs, and 36 of 45 top 3 finishers from 1996 to 2010 were also doping. While everybody is doping or everybody is doing it might not fly in a kindergarten, the current bans simply don't work and keep rule-following athletes from being competitive with their peers. I would mention this again, sports are constantly evolving. Walter Payton wasn't training with world-class coaches in state-of-the-art facilities when he dominated. We don't ban the advantages that modern-day athletes have over their predecessors, and that attitude of progress should apply across the board. We can continue the trend of hand-wringing and hysteria with one doping scandal after another, further embarrassing the field of professional athletics. Or we can legalize and regulate performance enhancement drugs to the benefits of sports and sports fans alike. Let's do ourselves and our athletes a service by allowing them to perform at their best. Thank you.
Now we have the first speaker of the opposition, Merin.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Merin and I will be the first speaker for the opposition team. I would like to begin by defining our motion. What do we really mean by sports? The World English Dictionary defines sports as an individual or group activity pursued for exercise or pleasure, often involving the testing of physical and mental capabilities. Professional sports is when athletes take up sports to be their career and they are paid for it. I do not believe there is a need to define what performance enhancing is to my worthy colleagues of the proposition, respectable judges, and to every individual in this room, as my opposite team has done so. However, I shall deeply stress on the meaning of drug because it is the core of our subject and our debate revolves around it. There are two distinct meanings in the Merriam-Webster dictionary which I find imperative to be voiced. One, it is a compound substance that is used in the treatment or prevention of disease. And the second meaning, which I would like to call everyone's attention to, a substance that causes addiction, habituation, and a marked change in consciousness. Addiction, habituation, and a marked change in consciousness. I would like to emphasize how the first meaning proves invalid in the face
Point of information.
Yes.
How would steroids fit in with your definition of drugs?
Steroids over the normal use does cause addiction. As the professional athletes here are neither using the drugs for preventing disease as well as they are not using it to cure a disease. So the first meaning proves invalid. So does our house permit the performance enhancement drugs use? Certainly not. My colleagues Faraz and Ali will be further highlighting and elaborating about the medical aspects as well as the negative influence of using performance-enhancing drugs in their respective speeches. I would like to shed light upon the basis of sports itself. Sports, and that to competitive sports, was initiated from the early ages as a means of promoting health and of mind and body. As mentioned earlier, it is a test of physical capabilities physiologically, not superhuman feats. A sense of sportsmanship which constitutes fairness, respect, and graciousness is held up with great pride in all sports, especially by professional athletes as it is their bread and butter. By permitting performance-enhancing drugs, we are stripping away the sense of sportsmanship, thereby sports itself by destroying the sense of fairness. In every profession, there are ethics one follow to ensure harmony. Opening the gates for the liberal use of pets is simply going to disrupt this careful balance that we've worked so hard to come. The proposition mentioned to ensure fairness. By making performance-enhancing drugs legal, we are not ensuring availability to all athletes. We are not ensuring affordable costs for all athletes. Yes.
You said performance enhancing is going against sports. Are you trying to say trying to enhance your performance to do better at sports is against the spirit of sports?
With drugs, yes. We are not ensuring affordable costs for all athletes nor availability. What we are ensuring is the unjust availability and affordability for these unjust drugs to certain athletes only. I would like to add how strict the sporting community is when it comes to ensure fairness. Laws are changed regularly, and as it is taking into account the evolving of sports. From mere urine samples, we have now moved on to more advanced biological passports. So we should continue doing so. Why are we going to allow a crime to happen before us? I would like to conclude.
I'd like to now call the second speaker of the proposition, Rahul, to elaborate on the case.
I would like to begin by stressing on one word that the first speaker used very callously: fairness. Now, I'm assuming you've all heard of the NBA, the National Basketball Association of the USA. What if I told you that there's one thing that if you possess, ensures that you have a 20% chance, that is 20% of all the human beings living in the USA, you have a 20% chance of being part of the high-paying NBA. You'd be like, what is that? I'll tell you. It is being above 7 feet tall. Now, the very important question to ask over here, how is that fair for someone who likes basketball, but for something that is obviously not his own fault, he cannot play it at that level for the simple reason that he was not born that way? Let me introduce you to a very simple fact that people might think of it as racism or something like that, but there is high specificity in the skills needed for certain sports. Go ahead.
In basketball, we have a spot called the point guard, who, if you're more than 6 feet 5 inches, you're not taking in. So I can give you examples like Allen Iverson and Nate Robinson, who are Hall of Famers who are in this category. Have you not heard of them? And while you're making this argument?
Thank you for pointing out there's only one position you can play fairly if you're not whatever, a certain height, spare thing, whatever. The point is that for the past 25 gold medalists in sprinting, almost all of them have come from or descended from people who used to live in West Africa, a very, very small geographical area. Now you might say, okay, is that it? No. The marathon runners have been positively dominated by Kenyans, but not just any Kenyan. You have to live on a certain plateau called the Nanini Plateau in Kenya, and all of these people, every single long distance runner has been from this area. Now this is not fair on the rest of us. As an Indian, if I want to pursue, say, running or something like that, go ahead.
So to overcome your geographical disadvantage, you take drugs, is that what you're implying?
Exactly what I'm implying. Okay, now the basic point over here is that not only have I got a significant disadvantage physically, even culturally speaking, places where there is no significant physical advantage, those are the places where culturally also you are told not to pursue a sport in which your people do not have a special advantage. Now you might say, well, that's how sports works, but that's what we're saying. If you want to be truly fair, start by giving everyone the equal opportunity to start playing sports at a competitive level, at a level in which they can make their living out of sports thing. Now you might say, well, hard work, all those things, well, what about those? Let me tell you a simple thing. When you have a certain genetic predisposition, practice makes you better, faster. also, because the more you train, the more those genetic traits are magnified, and you end up so much ahead that a person who does not have that specific genetic trait in his behavior will need more than your lifetime, more than his lifetime, more than many lifetimes to be able to reach that level of performance. Go ahead.
Those traits which you mentioned, which you're born with, of height and speed, that's called talent. That's your biological thing. So why haven't you addressed that? That's my question to you.
Thank you for saying that. That shows how completely ignorant you are of this specific topic. To be a sprinter, to take part in any specific sport that requires you to have certain bursts of energy, like boxing, sprinting, anything which will accelerate really, really fast, you need to have something called fast twitch muscles. Fast twitch muscles are muscles that respond very fast as soon as you employ stimulus to them. For endurance running, you need something that are called slow twitch muscles. Slow twitch muscles have this thing of being able to have aerobic respiration for a longer period of time. What also helps is that a lot of people like Ethiopians, as well as having having slow twitch muscles, they also have increased lung capacity genetically, which means that you can take absolute advantage of your really cool slow twitch muscles. And before you say something like, how is this got to do with genetics? Here's the thing. The proportion of fast twitch and slow twitch muscles in your body is completely defined by your DNA. I don't understand what's the fairness in that if you're not born a certain way. In simple terms, there is too much of an advantage to be gained by genetics in sport for you to ignore performance-enhancing drugs as a way of leveling the playing field. The playing field in this particular sense is the entire world, because the point is that to be the very best in sport is the dream of every single person today who takes up sport. Now you might say, what about hard work? But again, one more point is that you say someone like Usain Bolt, you can work as hard as him, but here's the thing, he is also working hard, but when it comes down to the entire thing, he's the one whose genetic predisposition to having fast twitch muscles gets him the world record, and you are left nowhere, because let's get realistic about it. In sprinting, a few seconds are literally all the difference in the world. And therefore, what it really comes down to, what I'm trying to say at the end of all of this is that genetics, the way that it's supposed to play right now, gives too much importance to your birth. Have drugs to level the playing field, because that is what is fair. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to call the second speaker of the opposition, Ali.
Good afternoon, friends, respected judges. My name is Ali Mir and I'm the second speaker for the opposition. I'd like to address the first point mentioned by my friend here about the NBA and about how the highest players have to be 7 foot and above. I'd like to point out to him that the top 3 players in the NBA right now are under 7 feet. And if you like the names are Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James, all under 7 foot and the highest paid players in the league. Coming to the point about the natural abilities of how someone is better than the other, and how their idea is that giving performance-enhancing drugs will help those with less natural ability compete with those who do. I'd like to say those drugs will also be available to those who are at the highest levels of their natural abilities. So even if they're coming up to that level will already be exceeded by them taking those drugs. Let us destroy sports as we know it today. Let's kill all competition that makes competitive sport. Do you think my words are shocking? But isn't this exactly what my friends are proposing today? It's like going into an academic examination and providing everyone with the cheats of the exam and then seeing who cheats best. Would the results of this exam actually matter? And what would they reflect?
Part of information.
Go ahead.
Haven't you heard of open book exams?
Open book exams are different, and giving the cheats for an exam are completely different. So just as that may sound appalling to you, what my friends are proposing today will mean the death of competitive sports as we know it. It will no longer be a competition between 2 individuals or 2 teams, rather a competition between 2 pharmaceutical companies, both seeing that which drug is better than the other. So when the results come out, it will read, this drug is better than this drug, not this athlete is better than the other. Now coming to the serious aspect of it. Do you really know what these drugs can do to each of the organs of the human body? If I were here to tell you about all the side effects of these drugs, we could be here all night. But let me just familiarize you with a few. Let me start with cardiovascular problems, then prostate gland enlargement, kidney failure, liver failure, masculinization features to women and feminine features to males. Yes.
You're talking about the adverse effects of steroids, anabolic steroids, that's from Wikipedia, which we never talked about.
For your information, anabolic steroids are performance-enhancing drugs. Aggressive behavior, rage or violence, depression, drug dependence. These are all some of the very few of the side effects which these performance-enhancing drugs can lead to. In an article by director of the National Institute of Drug Abuse, it says that some steroid abuser reports have committed aggressive acts such as physical fighting, armed robbery, theft, vandalism, and burglary, and admitted that they engaged in these behavior when they take steroids rather than when they are drug-free. And scientists have attempted to associate between anabolic steroids and aggression by administering high steroid doses or placebos to many individuals. To date, 4 studies have been conducted, and 3 of those 4 studies have shown that they produce a greater feeling of irritability and aggression than the placebos. The steroids, I repeat, cause greater feelings of irritability and aggression than the placebo. Individuals who abuse steroids can also experience withdrawal symptoms. These include mood swings, fatigue, restlessness, insomnia, and steroid cravings. The most dangerous of the withdrawal symptoms is depression. This depression can lead to suicide. This depression can also lead to a secondary addiction to another drug to overcome this depression, such as amphetamines and cocaine. And to overcome this withdrawal, what happens when an athlete retires? He will have to continue these drugs because of the addiction. All this drug abuse can culminate into a sudden or early death, which will be illustrated by 3 examples of sports people I will give to you right now. Knud Jensen, a 1960 Summer Olympian in Rome. He was a Danish cyclist, and following a collapse in a 100-kilometer race, he died. First, it was unclear what caused his death, but an autopsy revealed that Jensen had an amphetamine known as Ronicol in his system. Again, a performance-enhancing drug in his system. Tommy Simpson had a promising career in cycling, but that promise was cut short when he died at an early age of 29. Reason? Amphetamines. Job Elze, just a year after Tony Simpson's death, German boxer Elze also lost his life to amphetamine use. There's a very well-known survey in sports, one which shocked me and I'm sure will shock the audience here today. It's known as the Goldman Dilemma, in which Bob Goldman asked elite athletes of 200 elite athletes the question in the 1980s whether they would take a magical drug which would not show up in any screening and that would guarantee them a gold medal but would also kill them in 5 years. The results were shocking. More than half of the people said yes. He repeated the survey biannually for the next decade. The results were always the same. Almost half or more than half of the athletes were quite ready to take the plunge. What does this reveal about the mindset of a professional sportsman? They're willing to sacrifice their health and indeed their life just to achieve a podium finish. Athletes' current choice between losing might be replaced with an even more dire choice between perilous levels of drug using or losing. Thank you.
The third speaker of the proposition, Omar.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As the third speaker of proposition, I will be refuting all the points made by the opposition and attempt to restate some of our points if time permits. The topic before us today is this House would permit the use of performance-enhancing drugs in professional sports. I'll right away begin with the rebuttals. The first POI raised by the opposition was about dangerous substances being introduced into sports, even if whatever positive things my first speaker talked about are happening, there was something dangerous happening. When he did say in his speech that they would assume that we are talking about that was a hypothesis on their part, where they thought that we were talking about steroids, or they thought that we were actually trying to introduce steroids, and then they would go harping about that. So although I was not clear why she would ask that, later we find out that made a lot of sense because second speaker's entire speech is based on the wrong things that steroids do. When, let me reinstate, we never talked about introducing steroids. Then there was a POI raised about supplements being different from drugs, but we define supplements as part of the drugs the way we defined it. You need to understand if there's a topic which is like this, it is up to us. I'll be taking you in a second. It's up to us to define it in a way and restrict it that benefits us. You cannot cry foul about that and just assume that we're talking about steroids, or we assume we're not talking about supplements.
You haven't mentioned any drugs actually you're talking about. You haven't mentioned steroids or any form of drug. You said drugs in general. So if you could please define those drugs which you're talking about.
Okay, first of all, that was not a question, and I guess we need some hearing aid or something. We talked about stimulants, we talked about painkillers, we talked about diuretics, we talked about blood boosters. These are type of drugs which have many examples. You're coming from medical college, you should be knowing that. Then there was a point raised about the first speaker comes up here and half of the time she spends in defining the same things that we have defined. She agreed with what we said on most points, and then she redefined drugs. Here's one thing, please go through the rules. We define drugs because we are the proposition. You stick to that and try to defeat us on our arguments. You don't bring a counter argument that drugs are the way you want it so that you can defeat us just by talking about steroids all the time. Then there is a point raised about performance enhancing drugs is against the spirit of sports. Not drugs, performance enhancing is against the spirit of sports. First of all, spirit of sports is about enhancing your performance in order to achieve a feat. That's sports, that's professional sports. How is performance enhancing against sports? That's what she said. I raised a POI and she was dumbfounded. Then she said it's not fair to everyone. She said it's not fair to everybody if we bring drugs and all this. Well, here's the thing. It's not fair right now when some people are illegally doing it. It'd be fair if everybody has an option to do it. And once again, before you jump to any conclusion, we're not talking about steroids. We're talking about, should I say that again?
Point of information.
Stimulants, one second. Stimulants, painkillers, diuretics, blood boosters. Heard that? Point.
Okay. As you correctly pointed out, we are medical students, and we know that performance-enhancing drugs and the most common performance-enhancing drugs used are anabolic steroids.
That is your definition of performance-enhancing drugs. There are 6 types from where you pick most of your speech from. That's Wikipedia. We use the other 5 types. Please talk about that. Stop just talking about steroids. And you said you're from a medical school. He said if I'm born with a tall height or a particular physical feature, that's talent. Oh my goodness. Just because she's tall, Divya's tall, so she's talented. I'm short, so I'm not talented. That is the definition of genetics. That's genetics. Your mother and your father have some qualities which came down to you. That's not your talent. And talent is skills and other things like that. Skills, sportsman spirits, these kind of things, which by the way, stimulants, blood boosters, diuretics and painkillers are not going to make you more skillful in a sport. Skill is always there. That if sports does come down to skill according to you, that still benefits our point. So yes, that was the thing. Then there were more points brought about how it would be reduced to a competition between pharma companies. Well, my friend did talk about how as sport has progressed, a lot of things have kept on becoming legal and legal and legal. So just because, are you today going to say the sportsmen of today they have an unfair advantage over the predecessors because those days certain things were not legal? How does that even make sense? Today, can I not say that sports, taking your myopic view, it is reduced to a competition between companies where a particular company sponsors a particular athlete, another company sponsors another athlete, is trained by particular coaches who are, there's more like a competition between 2 anybody's rather than 2 sportsmen. End of the day, is it the companies, the pharma company will be coming and running over there, or that person will be coming and running over there? Then again, he talked about, he began the speech, second speaker talked about how the top 3 in NBA are less than 7 feet. 7 feet, that's the yardstick, 7 feet. How many people in USA are 7 feet? Please tell me about that. So clearly they have a national advantage, which is what we want to break over here. And the rest of the second speaker's speech, be it about feminization or dying of a sudden heart attack and these things, and that German boxer and the Danish cyclist who all died from steroids, for heaven's sake, we are not talking about steroids. At least when you come for your third speech, please don't talk about steroids and all this because we have defined it this way. Please stick to our definition, and that's the spirit of the debate. You talk about the spirits of the sports, this is how you're supposed to debate. And once again, I would also request them to not come over here and redefine the motion all again. So stay away from steroids, stay away from redefining things just to suit you, and please stick to all the positive things that we said, not one counter to that, not one counter to all the positive things that they talked about. Simply rambling about steroids all the time, because I'm going to win you this debate. I rest my case.
I'd like to have the third speaker of the opposition, Faraz, to present his case.
I'd like to begin by pointing out that dramatics will not win you with this debate. Also, yes, we have a right to define our motion the way we want, the way you define your motion, the way you wanted it to be. And yes, we did not, you talked about it's not steroids, but you got to know that the majority of the cases which have been reported are due to steroids. And talking about stimulants and diuretics, right? Let me give you a heads up. By the way, yes, I am from medical college, so I know a bit more about this than you. So stimulants, I give an example, cocaine, methamphetamines. Cocaine is still used by athletes now to make sure that they have better advantage, they have better muscle reflexes, that they have more better attention spans, so they can take part in multiple events in one go. So you wanted to put stimulants in, put cocaine in, fine. See how that works out for you. And amphetamines, right? Talking about amphetamines is meth, crystal meth, which is a class A narcotic which is banned in all countries in the world. And yes, talking about the NBA, trust me, I know more about the NBA because I play basketball and even my speaker plays basketball. And there is the average height in NBA is 6 feet 5 inches and not 7 feet. And there are people even as short as 5'11" for one dunk contest and also are Hall of Famers. So you cannot ignore them to support your own argument. And as for the fact of Lance Armstrong and the cases which my fellow speaker mentioned, you cannot ignore those cases, those deaths, because it just supports your argument. You're ignoring the entire fact the same way these people ignored the drug test and they fudged the document. You're fudging your facts and ignoring important points so that your arguments is stated. Also, the first speaker stated that there is a slight advantage which is given using the drugs. Please, let me inform you, in professional sports, slight advantage is all that is required. You have a time span between first, second, and third, less than half a second. So you get a slight advantage, you get first. There's a guarantee over there. And you
confirmation.
Please go on.
Won't providing drugs to everyone actually remove the whole point of there being a slight advantage to some people?
So you want to actually make a level playing field by giving everyone poisonous drugs? Or you only have a level playing field by having no drugs at all in the first place and instead keep stricter laws? I'm saying the laws right now, they give you an around 18-month ban if you take drugs. Make it even more stricter, even more stringent to make it a level playing field. And we're not poisoning them for crying out loud. And regulations, you say you can regulate the dosage. Regulate by who? By doctors? These doctors are paid by the team, so they don't have the best interest of players at heart. They have the best interest of the team, so they will overdose the players so that they actually perform for one game and not think about their overall side effects in their eventual life. So yeah, you want them to actually be the best judge. And supplements, oh please, the definition of supplements.
Point of information.
After my point. Supplements, first of all, are not drugs. Supplements are, in pharmacology, we learn supplements are naturally available substances which are given, which are not in form of diet. Example, vitamin B12 and so on and so forth. Drugs, on the other hand, are completely synthetic or compound created to treat a pathology. And being bad in a particular sport isn't a pathology, please. Yes, go on.
Corruption on part of the doctor, that he's actually putting things into a team just to win because he's getting money. Is that our liability? Did we include that in the topic?
That's the form of regulation you want to keep. You want it to be regulated. By who else will you regulate dosage but a doctor? You cannot have an economics major regulate someone's medicine dosage, right? Moving on, you're saying that if everyone doesn't have an equal access to it, it means that everyone should get an access to it. You cannot promote a crime just because it is happening under your eye. You stand strong by banning it. And also you cannot, yes, talking about the genetic traits of fast twitch muscles, slow twitch muscles, please let me also inform you that majority of the population, around 80%, have an equal distribution of fast twitch muscles and slow twitch muscles. The only thing which gives you a slighter advantage is a genetic advantage. And again, you do not define talent, and I am defining it to you. It's your biological trait which makes you better at something. Alright? It is a
Point of information.
Protected, sorry. It's your biological trait which makes you better at something. So having a better gene, being a bit more able to do something, gives you that advantage required. And also, I'll give you an idea, an example in basketball itself. These laws, they every day change to make sure there's fair play maintained in the game. And by the way, you guys did not even talk anything about fair play. Fair play should be mentioned in the game. And in basketball, right, if players get too tall, it so happened in the past that every shot which was taken, it was swatted off the board, off the tip of the rim, and the point was not counted. So the NBA installed a new law called goaltending, saying that if the ball's on the way down, it cannot be hit out. And if it is hit, they get the point. So there you go. There is a limitations by these laws to make sure there is fair play. And so by even having drugs in the system, we are having stricter laws to make sure there are none of them. So that we ensure the fair play in this system. And and he mentioned about equal opportunities are not given in countries. equal opportunities are not given in countries, that's a different debate by itself. Don't bring it over here. Those equal opportunities depends upon the financial constraint and the economical wealth of a country. And I'll just conclude with one point saying that these players have a role because they are role models to children and young athletes who aspire. If you wear jersey of 23, you'll have a young basketball player also wearing jersey of 23. Now, if you give an idea saying that to be good as me, you have to take drugs, because that's what Lance Armstrong did. He won 7 Tour de France. And in reality, he's been doping since 1999. And so all his victories were done through the effects of drugs. So you're saying that to be as good as someone, to be a legend, you have to take drugs. And that's the idea you're imparting on children and fans who aspire to be them. So I will try to conclude by saying that you have a moral responsibility by being a famous figure, and don't taint it by going to drugs. That's what junkies do, not a sports person who works with grit and talent. Thank you.
Time's up. So first, I'd like to call Ali from the opposition to give the reply speech.
In a quick sum up, I'd say permitting the use of performance-enhancing drugs would not only kill sportsmen, it would kill the sport. After all, what makes us watch sports or sportsmen? It is the extraordinary natural abilities of certain individuals who raise the bar of performances each time they step on a field. To watch those athletes perform, and for a generation of watchers, admirers to aspire and to be somewhat like them, is the biggest thrill of all. By making performance-enhancing drugs available, you will be degrading the art of sports. We started off defining the word sport, and we saw a host of other words associated with the spirit of sports. Words such as fairness, respect, graciousness. Talking about screening, like every system, it has had its loopholes in the past. But now, it has been getting better, and especially since, like my speaker said, the biological passport and everything like that, which is making the rules stricter and making it harder for athletes to go under the radar, and in the fear of being caught, they're stopping taking these drugs. The example of Lance Armstrong, I would like to repeat it. And the reason why I'm repeating it is because it's the most important example. Lance Armstrong was a hero to many. He won 7 Tour de France's. When he had cancer, he was not fighting that battle alone. The whole world was fighting that battle with him. He was treated like such a hero. Everybody looked up to him. I remember my own father telling me what a hero he is. And when it came out that Lance Armstrong has been doping, there was no love lost. What did the people think about him after that? All the animosity towards him, everything suddenly changed. Do you want the sports fans today to look at every athlete in that way? By permitting performance-enhancing drugs, we will take the very spirit out of the body that makes it a competitive sport, and it will end up not only changing the world of sport, but changing its meaning. I can't see an athlete smiling or feeling proud on a podium when his performance and triumph is being claimed to be enhanced by the drug which is displayed on his shirt. Would you feel enthusiastic enough to root for this person or stand up and applaud him when he wins? I most certainly would not. Thank you.
I'd now like to call Rahul from the proposition to give the reply speech.
Right, good evening everyone once again. Now, the way my team approached this topic was we kind of defined a model for this, and then over the course of the debate we also tried to explore the principle of having the use of performance-enhancing drugs in sport. We started off by very clearly stating that we would allow 5 types of performance-enhancing drugs, and we did not state anything about steroids because as the one giving permission, we were only permitting 5 of them. Of course, we also went ahead and defined the word drugs. Their first speaker came ahead and then redefined the motion for drugs, which basically she used the one that is used in pharmaceuticals as the one that is used in terms of addiction, not necessarily the ones of performance-enhancing drugs. Then my speech, the second speech, was about how the fairness in sport is is anyway not there because of the fact that people are born with genetic advantages that have absolutely no way of being reprimanded any other way than having performance-enhancing drugs. To which the entire team had absolutely no answer. The second speaker went ahead and again started talking about steroids, which again, as the ones giving permission in this entire debate, we were not permitting. So again, we both stand on the same side on that. Yes, we're not permitting steroids. Thank you for agreeing with us on something. All right. Then our third speaker basically went ahead and kind of destroyed the entire argument about how the entire speech is basically about steroids, about how they had to redefine the motion, the terms of this argument to try and make it part of their particular agreement. Okay, and then their third speaker came and basically spoke about how when I had said that 20% of all 7-footers living in USA were actually basketballers, and he interpreted that as saying that most of the people in the NBA are 7 foot. Well, yeah, the point stands for itself. Okay, and then again, he kind of put this whole point about role models, about how athletes are role models, and therefore they have a high standard, and therefore they should not do performance-enhancing drugs. Well, I'd like to quote their reply speaker, Lance Armstrong, a heartfelt, a man who for many was a huge beacon of hope, perseverance, and stood for so many things. And the time that he was standing for all of these things, he was using drugs. But still people loved him. Thank you.